Good morning. First, I would like to thank Ms. Morin Hoover for her gracious invitation to speak to you today. I also wish to thank the principal of this world's greatest high school for accepting my participation today. Then to the teachers and faculty of this school, I wish to say that you provide the inspiration, that you provide and are the source of motivation towards success for us, not only in school but further in life. I thank you and I commend you for your great work. And then to those of our audience, whether of your own volition or, as it were, a captive audience, I thank you for your time. There are three principles that have brightly burned and lighted my path that I wish to share with you. Number one, believe in yourself. Number two, take advantage of every opportunity. And number three, use the power of the spoken and written language to effect positive change for yourself and for society. And the fourth, while not a principle, it is a message that I would like to pass on to all who will hear. What is possible for me is possible for you. I am a man. I am not a beast of burden. I am not a piece of property that can be disposed of at the will of any man. I am a man. I am not a thing to be owned, bought, and sold. I am a man. And yet, the first 20 years of my life, this was the condition which I found myself inextricably bound. I have been told that my birth was in February of 1818. At the time of my birth, my mother named me Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. My mother, no doubt, gave such a name to me to inspire me to reach beyond a mere slave's existence. Later, for obvious reasons, I had to change my name. My mother was little known to me. In fact, the first 7 years of my life, I never saw her in the daylight. It was always the dead of night. And I have fleeting memories of her rocking me to sleep and putting me to bed. I would awaken in the night and she would be gone. Her name was Harriet Bailey. She was a field hand working in the cornfields of Holmes Hill near Easton. That's over on the eastern shore of Maryland. Holmes Hill was the farm owned by Mr. Aaron Anthony. I was not raised by my mother, but rather I was raised by my grandmother until I was 6 years of age. Slavery, indeed, is a brutal institution. Families were not encouraged to love and support one another. Families were purposely separated. In fact, it was not uncommon for an individual to not know one's mother or father. It is supposed that my father was our master, Aaron Anthony. At the age of 6, my grandmother took me silently the 12 miles to the Lloyd plantation, sometimes having to carry me because my little legs could not endure the journey. It was here on the Lloyd plantation that I was introduced to my brother and 2 sisters. I met my brother Perry, and I met my sisters Sarah and Eliza, but they were mere strangers to me. Grandmother took me over to the children and introduced us, and as silently turned and left me. The depredations of slavery did not escape me, even in this setting. Hunger and cold were a constant companion. The cook took great delight in sending me away hungry to bed. One night, however, my mother came for one of her very few visits. She had walked the 12 miles after a day of labor, and she had to make that return trip before the sun would come up. When I complained to her of the evil treatment of the cook, my mother railed on her so that after that I never lacked for at least a piece of bread. I was 7 years old when my mother was laid to rest. I do not know when or where she was laid to rest. I was an orphan in this world, having to make it on my own. At this time, the Lloyd plantation was owned by Miss Lucretia All. She was the sister of Mr. Anthony. And in the beginning, Miss Lucretia was my protector and friend. I had another protector, Mr. Daniel Lloyd, who would often take me with him on his bird hunts. He protected me from the bullying of the older boys. Still, when the night came, I was often hungry, cold, and ill-clothed for the weather. The nature of slavery? More than 20 years of my life were consumed in a state of slavery. My childhood was environed by the baneful peculiarities of this evil system. I grew up to manhood in the presence of this hydra-headed monster, not as a master, not as a guest, not as an idle spectator, but as a slave, eating the bread and drinking the cup of slavery with the most degraded of my brother bondmen, and sharing with them all the painful degradation of the condition. In consideration of these facts, I feel that I have a right to speak, and to speak strongly. Yet, my friends, I feel bound to speak truly. First of all, I will state as well as I can the legal and social relation of master and slave. A master is one, to speak in the vocabulary of the southern states, who claims and exercises a right of property in the person of a fellow man. This he does with the force of the law and the sanction of the Southern religion. The law gives the master absolute power over the slave. He may work him, flog him, hire him out. He may sell him and even kill him in some contingencies with perfect impunity. The slave is a human being divested of all rights, reduced to the level of a brute, a mere shadow in the eye of the law, placed beyond the circle of human brotherhood, cut off from his kind. His name, which the recording angel may have enrolled in heaven, is impiously inserted in a master's ledger next to horses, sheep, and swine. In law, the slave has no wife, no children, no country, and no home. He can own nothing, possess nothing, acquire nothing, but what must belong to another. To eat the fruit of his own toil, to clothe his person with his own work of his own hands is considered stealing. He toils that another may reap the fruit. He is industrious that another may live in idleness. He labors in chains at home under a burning sun and a biting lash, that another may ride in ease and splendor. He lives in ignorance, that another may be educated. He is abused, that another may be exalted. He rests his toil-worn limbs in the cold, damp ground, that another may repose on the softest pillow. He is clad in coarse and tattered raiment, that another may be arrayed in purple and fine linen. He is sheltered only by a wretched hovel, that his master may dwell in a magnificent mansion. And to this condition, he is bound down as if by an arm of iron. It is then the first business of an enslaver of men to blunt, to deaden, to destroy the central principle of human responsibility. Conscience is to the individual soul and to society what the law of gravity is to the universe. It holds society together. It is the basis of all trust and confidence. It is the pillar of all moral rectitude. Without it, suspicion would take the place of trust. Vice would be more than a match for virtue. Men would prey upon each other like the wild beasts of the desert, and earth would become a hell. Nor is slavery more adverse to the conscience than it is to the mind. This is shown by the fact that in every state in the American Union where slavery exists, except in Kentucky, there are laws absolutely prohibiting the education among slaves. cases may occur in which these are disregarded, and a few instances where slaves have been taught to read, but such are isolated cases. The great mass of slaveholders look upon education among the slaves as utterly subversive to the system of slavery. I well remember when my mistress proclaimed to my master that I was able to read. My master immediately went into a rage, his face colored with both chagrin and surprise. And he proclaimed, I was ruined. He proclaimed that my value as a slave was destroyed. He proclaimed that a slave should know nothing but to obey his master. That to give a Negro an inch was to give him an L. To teach a Negro to read, he would soon want to know how to write. And that by and by, he would be running away. I think, my audience, you will bear the witness of the correctness of this philosophy and to the literal fulfillment of his prophecy. At the age of 15, because I had become an unfit slave, I was sent to a slave breaker by the name of Edward Covey. Within 6 months of torturous beatings and harsh conditions, which I had never experienced in my entire life, my entire being changed. I recall I was broken in body, in soul, and in spirit. My natural elasticity was crushed. My intellect languished. The disposition to read departed from me. The cheerful spark that lingered about my eye died, and the dark night of slavery closed in upon me. And behold, a man transformed into a brute. In an encounter with Mr. Covey, in which he intended to whip me again for losing a horse, I fought back. The fight was a marvel. For more than 2 hours, he could neither overpower me himself, nor could he get support from the hands. My long crushed spirit rose, cowardice departed, bold defiance took its place, and now I resolved that however long I might remain a slave in form, the day had passed forever when I could be a slave in fact. I did not hesitate to let it be known of me that the white man who considered or expected to succeed in whipping me must also succeed in killing me. And it was after this time that I was returned to Baltimore, to Master Hugh. There in Baltimore, I became very highly sought out as a caulker. In fact, the white men resented my success and wage earning. I received harsh treatments from them and many severe fights. Mr. Hugh arranged for me to work in a different shipyard. And there I bargained with him to pay him $3 a week and pay my own expenses. This was agreeable to Mr. Hugh because he received all the benefits of slaveholding without any of the evils, while I endured all the evils of a slave without the care and the anxieties of a free man. Here in the shipyard, I met and fell in love with my wife, Anna Bailey, Anna Merrick, and we were married in New York City. It was there also that I began my journey as an abolitionist, a speaker against slavery. It was there that I met and was mentored by Mr. Lloyd Garrison. And I have no doubt you are familiar with him, a man of great inspiration who set me on this path, proclaiming that slavery must be abolished, that all men are equal in the sight of God. And I thank you.